Alright. Let it begin. So, I just woke up in my wool blanket. I got my mom's sent me this wool blanket here so I can put it on my crash pads. I no longer have to sleep without a wool blanket. And, candle lighting here, a little smudging. Never want to start the day without a good smudge. Oh man, my back is killing me. I gotta get that hat. Well, here. Never a dull day. Here. Put that back like that. Up here. As you can see, I just woke up. And, so, a couple good things happened last night. I'm going to put this up here. Cancel. Yeah. Alright. It's up here. I have this new style of making these videos. So, nope, sure. So, excuse me. I have this friend over in Oregon. His name is Brian, and we're working together on a map. Brian is an artist. He's a singer. He does a lot of music stuff, and he found me online, and we started to talk together. And we are working on a project to map the crude oil site in Bemidji. So this is I'm gonna copy that. So there's a site of Enbridge's own spill. I know I've talked about this a lot, but I always want to come back to it because it's kind of important. Because it relates to a lot of the things that we're doing right now. Basically, the Bemidji Crude Oil Research Project is a way to study the fate of crude oil in the subsurface of the earth, and it's being done collaboratively by the government, like the USGS, and corporate scientists, like people from Enbridge, and even academics. It's one of the best studied sites of oil leak in the world, and what they've done a lot of is to study the ways that the oil breaks down, and this is the thing that we're focusing on right now. It came out, oh look, it's gone. Big surprise. This one. So I've talked about this a lot, but it's important. And arsenic cycling and hydrocarbon plumes, secondary effect and natural attenuation. So basically what we've got here is right now we're actually going from the literature. I can find it. It's kind of bad. Well, okay. So he actually is helping me a lot. What we're doing is we're contacting the USGS directly to get data. These data are from actually data.gov, which is our next step. So mainly the thing is that what we're doing is we're basically interrogating public data to actually make a public resource for supporting the monitoring of the water publicly. And so this is actually the site that, this is the actual date. Like, these are the very first draft of data from the national, whatever that place is called, the oil spill site. And it's, it's the arsenic data from this paper. So, what we're doing is basically plotting, like I had him contact the people from USGS on email, and he got the data from them. Partly the reason why I had him do it and not me is because I want to make sure that it's not just me that's doing this. I think it's important not only for the sake of the public access to it, but also it needs to be distributed. It's a little bit unnerving to be the only one that is, I guess, what the word is, knowledgeable or whatever. So that's where the site is. That's the arsenic, that's the study site where they study the pipeline leak. These are all the wells. This is Pinewood, and this is Bemidji, just so you can see it. That's Lake Bemidji and Bemidji State University. So you can see the site is not exactly in Bemidji. It's like up here near Pinewood. But as I zoom out, what I'm trying to highlight is that it's just one site. And I mean, like you can see here, here it says the Mississippi headwaters. So it's a really important site. This is the beginning of the Mississippi, and it's a critical place for water. And as we zoom out, we'll see though that it's obviously just one place in a much larger country. And what I want to do is highlight our next steps. So currently this map here has just one point. It's a really well detailed point. It's a really well studied site. This is the site that's really high resolution study of the groundwater breakdown, but still it's just one site. So the next step is to actually go to the national data in terms of making our map. And what we're trying to do is now look at the public data and try to get some national scale data up there. So those of you that don't know how this works, I guess I don't know how it works either. I'm trying to learn and help y'all, anyone that wants to follow along. Well, let me get my coffee. Hold on. This is too quick. Hold on. Let's watch a video first before we get into this too much. Drone stream.
Hello, everybody. I'm Josh. So my project is called Drone Stream, and it begins in 2002. On November 3rd, a United States Predator drone entered Yemen's airspace and killed 6 people in a car. As Jeremy Scahill put it, it was the first publicly confirmed targeted killing by the United States outside of a battlefield since Gerald Ford implemented a ban on political assassinations in 1976. Right? So first covert drone attack, 2002 in Yemen. The second covert drone attack happens almost 2 years later in Pakistan, 2004. The target was apparently this gentleman, Nek Mohammed. A missile from a U.S. drone tore through the mud building he was in, severing his left leg and ending his life. But it also killed 7 other people, including 2 kids who were 10 and 16 years old. Right, so second drone attack, 2004, Pakistan. The third drone attack happened about a year later in 2005, also in Pakistan. 2 people were killed in a car. 8th drone attack, 2006. 80 to 82 people, including 69 kids, were killed at a school. 165th drone attack, 2010. These kids' parents along with their 8 and 10-year-old brothers, were killed when a missile hit the wrong house. 444th drone attack, 2012. Nabila's grandmother was outside of her home picking vegetables when a missile came out of the sky. Fast forward to last month, April 17, 2013. Fareya al-Muslimi, his village of Wasab, where he had been singing the praises of how awesome his experience was going to high school in California, became the target of a U.S. drone. And he said when he testified on the floor of the Congress that now when farmers in Wasab think of America, they think of the fear they feel at the drones over their heads. And he said that what violent militants had failed to achieve, one drone strike accomplished in an instant. Right? So how did we get here? 10 years, 480-ish secret drone strikes, 4,700 people. And what can our relationship be with this story? So with that in the back of my mind, the next thing I did was start a Twitter account. I said I was going to tweet the entire history of U.S. drone attacks, one by one, starting at the beginning. The idea basically being, who are these people who are being killed? How do we know that they have in fact been killed? Where does the information come from? If it's run by the CIA and it's officially not acknowledged to have happened, how do we actually know this? So I started reading a lot of news reports, right? I also said that it was going to take 10 minutes to tweet the entire historical archive and try to bear witness to this in a real-time platform. It's been about 5 months, and we're still in May of 2012, right? So still about a year left to go. The reason I want to do this, again, is to try to visualize this historical archive in ways that I can't even think about. I'm sure there's lots of other very talented technologists who can do that much better than I. I'm thinking of visualizations like the following one, made by Pitch Interactive, which is the story of every known drone strike and victim in Pakistan since the first one in 2004. When Fareya al-Muslimi can live tweet the drone attack on his village in Yemen and 6 days later be talking on the floor of the U.S. Congress, it feels like there's something of a feedback loop that's already being completed. To Americans like me, what may have previously been blank spots on the map, all of a sudden have complex stories, right? They have voices of their own. From 30,000 feet, it might just be cars and buildings. But there are people in them. People who live under the drones that we fly. People whose camels are killed by our anti-tank missiles. A 16-year-old U.S. citizen born in Denver, Colorado, who was goofy and loved hip-hop music and was barbecuing with his cousins one night when a piece of the sun fell out of the sky. There are people who can speak back to the drone now and be heard. And if I've learned anything from my time at NYU, thinking about uplifting things like aerial death and data and geography, it's that people like listening and people want to be connected. So what comes after that connection? What do we do once we have an alert about a drone strike in our pocket? What happens after the death toll gets counted and stored in the database? I'm going to end with some final questions. What about the farmers who wake up at night to the sounds of our airplanes? Or the parents in Yemen who apparently tell their kids to go to sleep at night by saying, you better get in bed or else I'm going to call in a drone strike on you. Where are those kids going to be in 10 years? How do you kill your way out of a complex problem? And what can we learn as technologists from the data if we don't even really have access to it? Anyway, DroneStream was my attempt to take a largely hidden data set, clean it up a bit, try to make it machine readable, and try to make it a little bit more visible. So you can check out the API here. Thanks.
All right. So let's see. Yeah. It's pretty clever. He did this app. He ended up putting it on Twitter. And
I want to turn to this new iPhone app that tracks every reported U.S. drone strike over the course of 2 years. Apple rejected different versions of the app no less than 5 times now for the first time.
Sorry.
I want to turn to this new iPhone app that tracks every reported U.S. drone strike over the course of 2 years. Apple rejected different versions of the app no less than 5 times now. For the first time, the app's finally available, and it's called Metadata Plus, created by Josh Begley. In his graduate thesis presentation at New York University, Begley explained why he created the app in the first place.
The first thing that I did was make an iPhone app, and it was called Drones Plus. And the idea for it was really simple. It would send you a push notification or just ping your phone every time there was a U.S. drone strike, right? So even if we have access to the data about drone strikes, do we really want to be interrupted by it, right? Do we really want to be as connected to our foreign policy as we are to our smartphones? Our phones, which are these increasingly intimate devices, right? The places that we share pictures of our loved ones and communicate with our friends. The things that we pull out of our pocket when we're lost, which auto-magically put us at the center of the map and tell us where we're going. Do we really want these things to also be the site of how we experience remote war, right? In an age when it's possible to sit in an air-conditioned room in New Mexico and control an airplane as it hovers over a village in what used to be India, is there a way to close that feedback loop a little bit and actually feel something, even if it's just my pocket vibrating when the missile hits the ceiling? Luckily, Apple helped answer the question for me. They loved the app, right? They loved it so much that they rejected it 3 times just to make sure more people would hear about it, right? They said that it was excessively crude or objectionable content.
That's Josh Begley talking about Metadata Plus. He referred to it as Drones Plus, but when it was sent to Apple as Drones Plus, it was rejected. Mediha Tahir, the significance of this. I mean, people who just listen, their jaws must drop.
Well, as you heard, the exceptionally crude or objectionable material in that app was simply the database of the drone attacks that the U.S. is conducting in various countries. So it was rejected 5 times on that basis. The last time that Josh actually submitted the app, Metadata Plus, he did it as an empty app, and then it was accepted. And after it was accepted, he filled it with the data. So clearly, the reason for the prior rejections was political. It had nothing to do with technical reasons or standard review, guidelines.
And Mediha Tahir, very quickly before we conclude, could you say a little about the area where the vast majority of these U.S. drone strikes occur? In Waziristan, you were nearby in Bannu. Waziristan and the tribal areas in general are said to be under virtual military occupation by the Pakistani military.
Yes, they are. North Waziristan, where the majority of the attacks happen, is, and you can't go there independently. You can only go there with the military, and I have not done that because I don't think it would be very useful to do that, to go and walk in with the military. The military has used collective punishment in North Waziristan, but in the tribal areas more generally. And, there's been intense repression. So very recently, actually, in December, there was a military operation in North Waziristan carried out by the Pakistani military in which scores of civilians were killed. Indiscriminate, open fire. Before that, earlier in the year, some Pakistani soldiers were attacked, and they instituted a 24-hour curfew that went on for months. Before that, after Osama bin Laden was killed and polio was used as a ruse to kill him, polio vaccinations, the militants in North Waziristan put a ban on any kind of polio vaccinations happening, and the response by the Pakistani state, by the political agent in that area, was to say to the population, look, if you actually comply with the militants' ban, you cannot get any government papers, no deeds, no national ID cards, things like that. So basically, the population in North Waziristan is essentially caught between the Pakistani state, the military, and these militants, and the Pakistani state does not treat these people as full-fledged Pakistani citizens.
And now a 3-year-old girl for the first time since 2001 has polio in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Yes, the numbers are actually going up. It's tragic.
Medea Tahir, I want to thank you for being with us. Freelance journalist, director of this remarkable documentary, Wounds of Waziristan. Her work has appeared in many different publications, and if you want to watch the documentary, Democracy Now! Broadcast it. You can go to democracynow.org, and we will link to her documentary. We will continue to follow the case of Karim Khan, who's featured in the documentary, who disappeared last week. At least 20 men in uniform and not uniform came to his house and took him away just before he was going to Europe to testify about the CIA drone wars. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a moment.
All right. Enough of that. Close that. So, okay. Now, this project is not nearly so glamorous. The major concern, hi. The major concern that I have right now with regards to public access to data is about the water. And so the major thing right now we have going for us is essentially a situation that there has never been in American history, to my knowledge. I might be wrong, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been doing my research. There has never been rural monitoring of water from wells, ever. There's never been an Environmental Protection Agency effort, there's never been a federal effort to look at the water quality in rural wells. So people that live in the countryside, outside the city, basically, most often, right, are not attached to any kind of, well, I mean, by being out in the middle of nowhere, they're not attached to a municipal water supply. They're outside of the city. So the vast majority of people in the rural areas of this country have to rely on wells. So they drill the well into the, in the earth. And when they do that, they're bringing up the water from basically aquifers that are like in the earth. And with that comes a lot of risk, actually, that I think a lot of people may be are not appreciating, because there's simply not an effort to educate or illuminate, the issue of the things that maybe could be in the earth that could end up in the water. Things like if you're in a rural area of farming, like pesticides, things like if you're in the area of fracking or oil production or even mining, or even just baseline, you don't do anything. It just could be high levels of certain things like arsenic. Basically, because there's been no federal effort to basically test and provide some kind of credible protection for people, there's been no regulations or anything like that, then these people that have been doing these well drillings and things like that have relying on the water have not really been educated as much as probably is necessary. In fact, I think it's fucking a crime. I mean, well, I don't want to get too polemical, here, but basically the bottom line is that the federal government has done basically zero effort to illuminate like what's going on with the water with the rural areas. And this is really important because in the wake of Standing Rock, I was really concerned about a lot of things around Flint, because I realized that unlike Standing Rock, which was about an oil pipeline, and as a chemist, I've been trained as a chemist, there wasn't anything I could really measure, at least I thought at the time at Standing Rock, like something that I could get some data on, that might support a long-term process of kind of like data science of the people. That the ultimate long-term process of, healing people's lives, I think the first step is going to be coming from illumination of like what the issue is. And I think it's incumbent on people that have resources, that people that have education, to provide the ways they think, I think, might be useful for, protecting water. And the first step is getting data. Everyone has a phone, right? Everyone has it. Not everyone, but most people have a phone. The vast majority of people, not only in this country, but in this, maybe not this planet, but I think there are 2 billion of these phones, right? There's a lot of phones. And we've seen a lot of activism around like Facebook Live and all that stuff. But what we haven't seen yet is something like Drone Stream, in this case on Twitter, and then he kind of goes further, like maybe makes an app or something. But the basic gist of it is he uses the public platforms of microblogging, like Twitter, to deliver data that is specifically focused on an issue. So in the case of Josh, he focuses on drones. He's highlighting like what's going on with the drone war. In my case, I'm focusing on the water, and I'm focusing in on one particular metal among other ones, arsenic, but I want to focus on like all of them, like cadmium, what I'm calling black snake toxic heavy metals, things like lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, things that might be related to like chromium, like what's her name? The Aaron Brockovich story was chromium-6. That was like a huge story in California about like metals and water, even aluminum, and manganese. There's a lot of metals that at a certain level, like at a certain concentration, they get to become very neurotoxic. And even very small amounts of these metals can affect things like learning and memory, can affect performance of children in school, can affect even like violence behavior, because they have very subtle effects on the brain that are amplified in terms of behavior that we really, as scientists, don't really know. Well, the scientists don't know. I don't even think I'm a scientist anymore. I don't even know what to call myself. But I used to be a scientist. But basically, these people that are in science don't really have a good idea about what's there. And I'll get to that later. But actually, I'll do that now. So there's a woman at MIT. Her name is Hazel Siv. And I'm going to just turn around for a second and show what I'm thinking about. But I want to, before I leave this page, I want to go back to this thing here. So, my thought is that, actually, let me get to the point. My thought is that as a technologist and as someone who went to Standing Rock and cares about the water, that cares about Flint, that cares about children, I was part of the 7th generation school there, but they called it Defenders of the Water School in Sacred Stone. I really had like zero interest in what the adults were doing, for obvious reasons. But I feel like they're kind of lost causes in a way. Children are not, though. Children are not lost causes. In fact, adults are not lost causes either. But if you help the children, I think the children can even help their parents sometimes. But what I realized is that when I was there, I realized that intersectional chemistries can maybe actually influence the social resistance to things like big oil, mining, other things like that. And here's why, or here's how. So Drone Stream provides a good precedent for this, using Twitter, as a platform. But I think it even gets more exciting when you realize that for an issue like water quality, there's already a lot of data available that can be plotted and shared to illuminate, what's going on with the water. So like here again is this map that my friend Brian and he goes by Splatterhead Jones. Again, if you're just tuning in, like we're making this map from this this set of wells in Bemidji, which is basically one of the best studied oil pipeline leaks in the world. And if you can see it as we go, like zooming into it, it's actually quite a high-res data set. And I want to show more of it. What they've done is to drill into the plume of oil that essentially, like, it's like the pipeline is here, and then the water flow is like to that way. So it's like that, oil, water. And they're drilling these wells in the water and looking at the geochemistry of it. And so this is this paper, the arsenic cycling and hydrocarbon plumes, secondary effect of natural attenuation. And I'm going to read it. Monitored natural attenuation is widely applied as a remediation strategy at hydrocarbon spill sites. Natural attenuation relies on the biodegradation. So in other words, like living organisms like bacteria. Natural attenuation relies on biodegradation of hydrocarbons. So read oil. Hydrocarbons is oil. So in other words, I'll repeat that. Natural attenuation relies on biodegradation, bacteria of hydrocarbons, oil, coupled with reduction of electron acceptors, in this case metals, including solid phase ferric iron, iron 3. So that's the rock, basically. And in Minnesota, we have a lot of what's called taconite up there. They even call it, the area is called the Iron Range. As a side note, 3M, that big corporation that does a lot of chemistry stuff, is actually Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company. And it all got its start from mining up there, the Iron Range, the taconite. Because arsenic absorbs to iron hydroxides, a potential secondary effect of the natural attenuation of hydrocarbons coupled with iron 3 reduction is a release of naturally occurring arsenic to groundwater. At a crude oil contaminated aquifer near Bemidji, Minnesota, anaerobic biodegradation of hydrocarbons coupled to iron 3 reduction has been well documented. We collected groundwater samples at that site, and this is the USGS Enbridge scientists, the academic scientists too, some people at Virginia Tech. We collected groundwater samples at the site annually from 2009 to 2013 to examine if arsenic is released to groundwater, and if so, to document the relationship between arsenic and iron inside and outside of the dissolved hydrocarbon plume. Arsenic concentrations in groundwater in the plume reach 230 micrograms per liter, whereas the groundwater outside the plume contained less than 5 micrograms per liter arsenic. Combined with the previous data from the Bemidji site, our results suggest, 1, that naturally occurring arsenic is associated with iron hydroxides present in the glacially derived aquifer sediments. 2, point 1, arsenic is in those minerals that have the iron that are being chewed upon by the bacteria as they eat the oil. All right, that's important. And another side note to that first point is that these sediments that are in the earth are actually enriched in arsenic because of glacial activity. So this is true not only for Minnesota, it's also true for the Dakotas, North Dakota and South Dakota, is my understanding. And that's something that I'm going to look at more later. But I don't want to get too distracted here. 2, introduction of hydrocarbons, oil, results in reduction of iron hydroxides, releasing arsenic and iron into groundwater. So in other words, when the oil comes out of the pipeline, so in other words, when you have an oil leak, in this case, this was about 500,000 gallons, I believe, in 1979 of Enbridge's own oil came out of their own pipeline. When those hydrocarbons get out and there's enough time for them to be broken down, the bacteria basically chew up the iron hydroxides and they release arsenic and iron to the groundwater. So that's even worse than like a situation. I mean, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to sound too like making judgments about stuff, but the thing with Flint was that, in contrast to Flint, where you can actually, essentially turn off the valve of the lead pipes, there's really no way to turn off this phenomenon. Like, you can't just, because it's not a man-made source of the heavy metal, like in this case arsenic, you can't imagine like doing that as you could do in Flint. Like, they can't replace the pipes like they could in Flint. It's just, if you're a rural person with the wells in that area, you're fucked. I mean, maybe you could filter the metal's out, but then you have to purchase like filters every single time you want to drink your own well water. You're going to have to basically, filter it. And even further than that, you have to know it's there. So probably most people that are exposed to this stuff, I don't even think would have the foresight, to test for this stuff. I think it's like, it's just fucking terrifying in a way, because it's like you're looking at a federal government that has never historically tested rural wells at all. There's been like zero effort to do that, and probably largely, I don't know. I don't want to get too conspiracy theory like, but there's just no like public accountability here for these companies that are doing these drillings, the pipeline stuff, the mining. Like, it's fucking sad. So I think that's where a technologist or like people, general citizens, scientists, well, general citizens can evolve into general citizen scientists. If you're an activist, you have that inclination already to like stand up for the water and whatever. But unless you have data, it's going to be really hard to actually go into either court or Congress or your legislature or your public official, like your congressperson, and say, this is what's happening, and these are the things that I see, not only in terms of like what I feel, but what I see in terms of data. I think, I don't want to get on my soapbox too much now, but I think it's actually almost sometimes counterproductive to approach these people as like emotionally charged as some people do, because what ends up happening is that essentially they shut down. There's no coherent meeting point. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It becomes this sort of rhetorical war, and even like maybe a real war eventually. Certainly, I think last year at Standing Rock, you had that. It was a pre-war. Maybe it was war. I don't know. But anyhow, okay, that's more side notes and shit. But 3, at the leading edge of the plume, arsenic and iron are removed from the groundwater and retained on the sediments. So I guess they do end up getting redissolved somehow in the sediments. But the main point is that they're migrating, and it's essentially what's happening is the oil pipeline leak in this case, and this is most likely a very general phenomenon, is accelerating the migration. And imagine if you're in a town, right? Thinking about it this way, like if you're up here, up in this site, Bemidji is not that far away, and neither is Pinewood. There's Pinewood, right? Certainly the people that live like over here, even like, look at this. I would imagine, shit, I should probably test this. Fucking that lake right there. In fact, shit, I should do that. I'm going there right, like later. I bet you that lake right there. Wow, that's why I'm testing this shit. I bet you that lake right there is poisoned, and I bet you it's probably off limits. Maybe it's not, but I would imagine that if this aquifer is being leaching the arsenic, I would bet you that these lakes here are compromised in some way. There's like all these little lakes here, like these guys here, that should be tested. I would imagine like pretty much every single one of these things may be affected somehow. I don't know. That's just a hypothesis. And I think that's why we map stuff. That's one of the major reasons why I'm making this map with people like Brian, or Splatterhead as he calls himself artistically, is that, we need to be able to figure out like which of these lakes is going to be affected, and to what extent and to what degree. And considering how bad things are affected by mercury, like ocean levels of mercury, it becomes a real severe question. Like it's very challenging. This is literally the model system, right? This is not even like, people might not even consider this real, because it's just one site. But that's kind of the point, I think, here, is to show with a model system clearly, things that are kind of relevant, for public health and safety. I think the map we're making, it informs this. I didn't know about these lakes. I didn't even think about it till today. That I mean, I may even just take a screenshot of this. I mean, I think that going on a little hike and just measuring these waters, like around here. Oh, look, there's an outdoor store. I might even just pay them a visit today or later. Couldn't call. Grant Creek Outfitters. All right. Sweet. Oh, I got my thing. I bet you these guys are hunters. It's a fishing store. Okay, they're going to care. I mean, come on. This is, guys, the business of these guys is the fishing. So they're about fish, and goddamn, man, like they have like tourist stuff for fishing and stuff. Well, guess what, guys? If your water is being poisoned by arsenic from your fucking pipeline fucking leak, I mean, even if it's just a little bit, I bet you they're going to care. And I'm not like even trying to inspire controversy here. This is just fucking pure interest in public health. But I bet you these guys are going to care. And I don't even want to talk to anybody else right now. I'm going to talk to just the people. It's crazy. I'm going to see if I can find that paper. I keep on like getting disorganized and stuff. Oh, this one's important too. So this is about actually an estimate. High concentrations of domestic well populations in the contiguous United States. So they look at 20,500 wells, and they develop a model for the high arsenic, and the probability. I can zoom in. Well, the probability of having high arsenic is above 10 micrograms per liter. High arsenic, which is the EPA like toxic level, is in basically red. You can see that a lot of the Midwest has this. It's kind of nasty. I mean, it's pretty nasty indeed. These are the data they use, I guess, for their model. It's a regression model. And so one of the things that Splatterhead or Brian and I are going to do is plot these data. So these are the raw data from wells. And I'll show you how we're going to do that in a second. But basically, they create the model from that, and what it means is just they fit these data to a set of equations that kind of tell you like estimating where the arsenic will be based on both the geology of the earth and like the well data. So it's it's called regression. It just means curve fitting. Like if you remember back to like high school, like it's like how you fit a curve. If you have data, you fit a curve. But basically, if you see this is probability of arsenic having a high level above 10 micrograms per liter, which is basically the toxic level according to EPA. And you can see like southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, a lot here in like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. There's just a lot in the Midwest. There's just a tremendous amount in the Midwest. People that are in like Michigan, I don't even know where Flint is, but I'm sure they would care about this. Flint, Michigan, right? It's up here. So probability of arsenic being higher than 10 micrograms per liter, greater than 50%. So the red means you have a 50% or higher chance of having the toxic level of arsenic. And that's, again, like it really gets back to the ideas of like these are rural areas that, I mean, Maine has a lot, and then like southern Texas and the mountains. But I mean, really the Midwest is where you have a lot of people that are living on, farmland basically, and that are using wells. And I mean, here's like domestic well population. So they show here, right, that like, look how many people, like the dark green is like over 40,000. So much of the population, again, is using, like, Michigan is number one. I mean, northern Minnesota. So in Wisconsin, like northern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. I mean, there's the overlay. Population with arsenic greater than 10 micrograms per liter, 5,000. So Michigan actually is the number one place in a way, followed by Indiana and Ohio. Illinois, it's Minnesota. I mean, Maine is there, but so much of Maine is rural. I love Maine too, and I mean, I don't know. We'll get to that. But so this is the state populations, percent of state populations with arsenic of higher than 10 micrograms per liter. We'll just call that toxic levels. But so basically, oh look, North Carolina. Fuck. I didn't even see that. Jeez. Okay. I didn't even see that in the data, but look at that. Strangely enough, I didn't see this until now. Like, it doesn't look like much, but I think what it is that the demographics of it. You know, there's a lot of people in central North Carolina that have these wells, and I have a friend there, so I'll share this with her. But okay, so California. I mean, California has so many people, but North Carolina doesn't have a lot of people. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Maine. And then other states too, but these are the most compromised ones. And I guess, well, it sucks, but yeah. I don't know. Let me find the other one with paper. So this is the actual pipeline paper. Okay. So for y'all that are just tuning in, like, this is the actual diagram of the wells of that abstract I read you, and so you know that's basically what we're plotting. Like these data here. Like these wells here are these wells. So we're going to focus on that. And what they say is that, like, the plume as it's going out has like different zones of metabolism. That just basically means the breakdown of the oil. They call it a plume. It means the breakdown of the oil is occurring over time. So it, like, here's the pipeline, and then it's like going out, and here's the rupture site. Enbridge pipelines. So there's a bunch of Enbridge pipelines. See that? They're all here, up there. That's the pipelines, and here's the well locations on the vertical, and it tells you like what's going on with the geology, and then it tells you where the wells are. 200 meters from center of oil. So basically, it's like as you go along this like these wells, that's like where's in the depth of the earth. Okay, so graphite furnace atomic absorption spectroscopy. Zeeman background correction. So this is what they use for to test the arsenic. Atomic absorption spectroscopy. I think that's what they're using. So down the road, I mean, this is going to be the goal, like the long-term goal, is to actually get our hands on that. In fact, I think it might even be a good thing to consider doing a DIY version of this, which I don't think has been done yet. There's been an electrochemical sensor done, but I think that this might actually be the gold standard, considering this is how the paper was done. So I'm going to be thinking about that. It's basically a flame test. Yeah, we'll get to that later. But GF. Ugh. Here we go. Varian Spectral 22. How much does that cost? Yeah. Let's get back to this, but GFF. Graphite furnace. I'm gonna use the restroom, but
here are basic operating instructions for the department's Varian Model 5055 Atomic Absorption Spectrometer. Solution is aspirated from your container through a plastic capillary tube into a mixing chamber. Capillary is attached to a needle that forms part of a spray nozzle. Compressed air forms an aerosol of tiny droplets that mix with acetylene in the chamber. A baffle knocks down all but the tiniest droplets, which go into the flame to be detected. A light beam from a hollow cathode lamp is directed through the flame for a total length of 10 centimeters. Here is the burner head in the instrument. Turn on the power for the instrument with the rocker switch on the far left. After some initial diagnostic steps, the load page will open on the computer screen. Use the arrow key to highlight the cookbook. Press the enter key to proceed to the next Flint. Elements for analysis are alphabetized using their atomic symbols. In this demonstration, we're going to set up to do a copper analysis. Use the arrow key to highlight the calcium to europium section. Copper is listed just beyond the bottom of the window. Scroll down using the arrow key until the element is highlighted. Then press enter. The following screens are used to set important instrumental parameters. We'll be operating in the absorbance mode for this demonstration. One can also operate in the emission mode. To make a change, use the right arrow key to move the highlighted region into the box on the right. Then move up or down to the highlighted area of your choice. Then press the enter key to accept the operating mode. This instrument can hold two separate hollow cathode lamps at any time. We need to determine which position the lamp for our element is located. Open the door below the computer screen and look closely at the elements listed on the base of the lamp. In this particular case, we have a multi-element lamp that includes copper in position 1. A lever at the top left of this compartment is used to select the active lamp by directing the appropriate light beam to the flame using a mirror. Be sure the lever points to the lamp that you want to use. If necessary, use the arrow key to change the selection to the appropriate number on the screen and proceed to the next item. The amount of current that runs through the lamp will control the intensity of the light. The higher the current, the brighter the light beam. A bright light beam helps us obtain reliable measurements. However, high currents will result in shorter lifetime for the lamp. Follow the lamp manufacturer's advice for the active current level. We will accept the default value here. We'll also accept the value for the standby current. In some samples, particulates and/or incompletely dry droplets can scatter the light and produce an erroneously high absorbance signal.
all right.
This background can be subtracted out by using a second lamp, in this case a deuterium discharge lamp.
So that's fancy, but here's the deal. This is actually insanely easy to do. Oh my god, I can't believe I didn't think of this before. Look at this. Flame test for unknowns. Let's get that speaker back on.
We're Rhett and Link, and we wanted to our amazing new website with Wix. Now, we know that having a great website is crucial.
Science. Flame test.
Quantum mechanics or atomic structure always brings about a lot of discussion in terms of electrons and where they are, and many times students, even at the middle school level, have talked about the Bohr model of the atom and how the electrons are in orbits and how they can jump from one orbit to a higher energy orbit and fall back down, releasing a photon of light. Flame tests are oftentimes an easy experiment to do with that unit, and the students really enjoy it. You can make connections to things like fireworks and a variety of things that really can make the subject come to life. Many teachers do flame test experiments in a variety of ways. The way that I like to use or do the experiment involves the use of nichrome wire. What I like about nichrome wire is that it is not a very good heat conductor, and that the way that the students will do the experiment is I'll take, in advance of the students coming in, I'll take the spool of nichrome wire and I will cut a length of wire about this long, and I'll then take a pair of pliers and I'll fold a little loop on the one end. What's amazing about this, and it always surprises the students when I demonstrate the procedure, is that I can heat this part of the wire, okay, the looped end of the wire, I can put that right in the Bunsen burner flame, and this part can get just orange hot, incredibly hot, and yet I don't feel that heat out here where my hand is. They'll say, oh my gosh, isn't that getting warm? Isn't that getting warm? And that's kind of a good question that they're asking, because many times metals are very good heat conductors. That is not the case with the nichrome wire, making it perfect for flame tests. What I have here would be a test tube containing a lithium solution, a sodium solution, copper +2 solution, and a potassium solution. All of these solutions, typically we use a 1 molar solution, but the concentration isn't that important. Well, and you'll see the amount that I have in here is more than enough. I could get by with probably 15 classes could use this amount of solution in the test tubes. Okay? Let me show you the procedure.
Science. Oh yeah, here we go. Fire. Yeah.
I also have here a beaker of waste, or a beaker of rinse water, so that way we don't contaminate as we go from one test tube to another. All that I do is I take this nichrome wire and I insert it down into the solution like this, and then I'll pull that out and carefully bring it over to the Bunsen burner flame.
Yes.
And so what I'm seeing would be that characteristic lithium color.
Wow.
And we see that to be a red color. So if you could write red for our flame color for lithium. Now on the nichrome wire, I still have some residual lithium ions, so I'm going to rinse that in the beaker of water.
Lithium.
Before I go on to the sodium.
Well, we got that sample. What's that one? Going back.
And there we see the color like this.
Lithium. Right.
And then I'll pull that out and carefully bring it over to the Bunsen burner flame. And so what I'm seeing would be that characteristic lithium color, and we see that to be a red color. So if you could write red for our flame color for lithium. Now on the nichrome wire, I still have some residual lithium ions, so I'm going to rinse that in the beaker of water. Before I go on to the sodium.
Sodium. Here we go. Aluminum complex of silicon and sodium.
And there
aluminum,
we
and sulfur.
see the bright
That's the
yellow-orange
blue
color
the one I love so much,
of
the
a
ultramarine
typical
blue.
sodium flame.
That's awesome.
So a yellowish-orange color,
Yellowish orange?
or
All right.
bright orange.
Bright orange. Look at that. He's even got his assistant. Incredible. That's
I'll
great.
rinse it again.
Allah Akbar. Fire blanket. No, it's a fire blanket. Science.
And then it's off to the copper wire, or copper test tube.
Look. Big
And that
fire.
would happen quickly. Let me
This is
run back
copper.
to that.
We got big fire right here. That's copper. Copper, sulfate, cupric sulfate,
And we
cupric
see
chloride,
the
polyvinyl
greenish
chloride. Should be
color
green.
of the
Big
copper
fire.
flame.
Got that?
To the potassium.
Potassium. Well, fuck potassium. We're gonna do iron too. The ochre,
And we see a
Iron.
lavender type of color
hydrated
for
iron
that
oxide. So,
flame.
all right, you get the idea. So, here we have the way to fuck big hole in the ass. Sorry, excuse my language. I'm so sorry. This is so exciting. See, from providing security from death threats on the camp of Meiningen, or not Meiningen, yeah, death threats on Meiningen camp, to the security of Turtle Island Direct Action Camp on this thing, to finding arsenic in the Enbridge's own oil, to figuring out how to test it with flame tests of painting, and copper. This is pretty, I don't know, sulfur, sodium, aluminum, whatever. Lithium, okay, you know, that we bipolar people are useful. And iron. And we've got all these fucking paintings here. So this is another part of the project, is to use art galleries. All these are black snake toxic heavy metals. These paintings are focusing on cadmium, which is a toxic metal. I'm going to get some Paris green, which has arsenic in it. This is chromium, which is toxic as shit. Manganese. It's also really pretty. Chromium is toxic. Think Aaron Brockovich, chromium 6. Manganese, cadmium. Iron. I don't even know what's in the black. I don't care. I do care, but it's all just lithium. We're making a point, and that comes later. I mean, we've got smudge, right? And then we got these paintings. And this is going up in a gallery pretty soon because we have nothing to fear. That's the Leonard Peltier's son's skull of horse stuff. That's what I'm calling the tar sands oil spill. And when you look at this painting, it's super pretty. I love this stuff right here. The ochre and the blue. I'm going to make a painting of that today. Unfortunately, it's peeling some of the stuff, but this came out nice and pretty. And these are my standards. So that's cadmium, cadmium. These two are cadmium sulfur selenide. That's manganese. That's, wait, yeah, manganese, chromium, aluminum, and sulfur, and sodium, and something else. Iron, chromium. Those are the two mixtures. Don't know what that is. A leaf. We'll get to that later. That's like super advanced where we get proteins involved. That's a leaf. And you. So, where this gets really exciting is the fact that we're making an app to get you to test the rural wells to avoid mass rioting from anybody who's in the rural area when they find out what their government has been doing to them. So, considering there's never been testing of rural wells ever, several million people, on a mild estimate, have been poisoned, probably intentionally, by our lovely government. I don't care who you vote for. Fucking Obama, Mr. Reagan, doesn't fucking matter. They're all from the city. And if you're in the countryside and you think that, I don't know, you like children, you like your children, you are going to love Wiki Arsenic, because it's your ability to push back on these big city slickers. And if you're in the city too, you hate big oil and you hate mining and you hate corruption, welcome to the club. So mainly this is going to be a YouTube channel. It's not going to be Breaking Bad because that's already been done, and Breaking Bad sucks because I don't like meth. We really hate meth in the Middle East, and all these Muslims like me, we hate meth. We like Breaking the Bad. So, stay tuned. And remember that if you ever screw with an herbal, meaning big ol, you will pay. Because it's not just me. It's all the poor ass people in the planet. And there are not many Illuminati guys. There are 8 Illuminatis and 6,999,999,992 of us. 8 Illuminatis, a lot of us. Peace.